Hey guys, how's it going? So, the bulk of the edited content on this channel is history-based, searching to explain the real-world connections of fictional characters in FGO to their real-world counterparts. For some characters, this poses a certain challenge. None are more prevalent in that category than the Konyanskayas. While they are 100% fictional characters, the reason given as to how they even came to be involves one of the most fascinating cases of an interstellar object crashing onto our pale blue dot. The Tunguska event. If you're worried about spoilers for the eventual story chapter of Tunguska that will be coming out later this year, don't be, because I haven't read it, and unlike Lost Belt 6, I have absolutely no knowledge on what happens in it aside from one very specific thing. That is, the aforementioned connection between the event and the Koyans. So today we're going to talk about not so much a historical character, but rather a historical event. So get ready because we're diving into the mysterious tale of Tunguska. Here are the chronological order of the events as they took place in the wee hours of a summer morning. On June 30th, 1908 at around 7:17, people living around the region of Lake Baikal in Russia saw a thin streak of light fly across the sky from east to north. They described it as being blue in color and lit up the area like the sun. As it approached the horizon line, it suddenly exploded into a massive red light. A smaller piece of the light broke away and a pillar of smoke appeared where the explosion had happened. This pillar eventually faded from red to black. After about 10 minutes, a massive explosion was heard that residents described as sounding like artillery being fired. Witnesses close to the impact area reported that after the object exploded, the shockwave from it shattered windows and sent people flying backwards. The explosion was powerful enough to shatter windows within a couple 100-kilometer radius. The shockwave was detected as far away as Britain and Indonesia, and registered on seismographs. The cloud of dust from the event coated the entire planet for about a month before dissipating, causing light refraction against what was believed to be ice crystals to light up the night sky across Europe and Asia. Years later, research on this explosion would determine that its power was akin to a 5-megaton nuclear bomb. Here's where things get curious though. Despite the incredible remoteness of the explosion, as Tunguska was in Siberia, aka the frozen wasteland where humans should never live but do, many scientists wanted to go out and research the impact crater. So we need to fast forward just a bit though. The remoteness of the explosion and the fact that this was occurring in 1908 Russia meant that there were some problems with sending scientists out. First and foremost, Europe as a whole right now was in a bit of a state of unrest, and 6 years after this event, World War I would be in full swing. The Great War was a really bad time for Russia, and they transitioned into being the Soviet Union, which led to a whole series of issues when it came to doing research into various things. So by the time that research was permitted to mineralogist Leonid Kulik, 13 years had passed since the event. He wasn't even sent to research the explosion itself. He had to convince the Soviet government that they may be able to get meteoric iron from the site. It took a further 6 years to provide preparations, and finally, after almost 2 decades, a research team made its way to the blast site in the year 1927. Despite the extensive passage of time, the impact area seemed to have been frozen in place. In what would be described as a butterfly-like pattern, trees around the site of the explosion were flattened to the ground for over 2,000 kilometers. At the epicenter where a crater should have been, for about 8 kilometers there were trees, without any branches, standing straight up like charred toothpicks that had been placed into the soil. At various points around the blast area were 50 to 100 meter in diameter bogs, as well as a number of small depressions deep in the ground. At the time, these were theorized to be the remnants of the exploded object, but the team lacked the proper equipment to determine if this was really the case. The initial investigation would be extended to 3 others over the course of a decade, because remember, Siberia is a place that people should not be. The permafrost in the ground made it difficult to do any proper excavating, the isolation of the location made getting equipment there nearly impossible, and we were in the starting phases of prepping for a second war to end all wars, in which the Soviet Union would have a role center stage. All of this to say, it was a proper pain in the ass to research this thing. Fast forward some more, and we're out of the hot war and into the cold one of the 50s and the 60s. Renewed interest in the Tunguska event sent scientists with more advanced technology, courtesy of wartime innovation, back out to Siberia. They discover microscopic balls of silicate and magnate with high concentrations of nickel in the soil and later in the trees. This is consistent with meteoric explosions that have been researched in the past. These spheres in the soil helped to determine the approximate height in which the meteor exploded because of how they were dispersed, as well as the relative position of the trees that were knocked over. When the bogs were analyzed, they were found to contain high levels of iridium. This is significant because iridium iridium is the same material that is found in the fossil record around the time of the mass extinction of the dinosaurs, which is also believed to have been caused by a meteor that hit Earth in the Yucatan Peninsula in what is now Mexico. All of this to say, what almost hit Earth on that June of 1908 was almost certainly extraterrestrial in origin. I'm going to make a note saying that extraterrestrial does not mean aliens, it means something outside of Earth's boundaries, though we will bring aliens back into this in a minute, don't you worry. Let's start off by giving some quick classifications to what astrological bodies are. Asteroids are minor planets that are too small to be considered true planets and are usually composed of metal. Comets are made of ice that release gaseous vapors as they near stars and begin to heat up. A meteoroid is for all intents and purposes just a very small asteroid. A meteor is a meteoroid that is broken through Earth's atmosphere. Finally, a meteorite is the physical remnants of any of these three that exist on Earth or anywhere else that has an atmosphere. I'm sure that's not 100% accurate, so if you're an actual astrophysicist, please tell me I'm wrong. There is an ongoing debate right now as to whether the celestial body that caused the event was either an asteroid or a comet. Those who propose it be a comet cite the crystalline dust cloud that covered the Earth, leading many to believe that this dust was actually ice, which is why it was able to refract light and cause the night sky to glow. This is supported by the fact that a periodic comet, Comet Encke, which was known to cause meteor showers when it appeared, would have been around during the time of the event. With modern tech, we have also determined that these fragments that break away from the comet do in fact explode above the ground, as was the case for Tunguska. The issue with the comet theory is that even with the estimated size of the comet fragment, it should have mostly still burnt up in the atmosphere. The size of the devastation would require a comet fragment of massive proportion, which defies logic. It also doesn't align with proper comet fragment falling patterns. This would lead one to believe that instead it was an asteroid that caused the event. The primary issue with this is the lack of a crater. It is incredibly rare for an asteroid to just explode mid-air, given that they are composed primarily of metal. That said, it's not impossible, as the shift of temperatures and pressure may have caused a reaction in the metal that made it explode. Again though, asteroids tend to leave at least chunks of physical remains, and very few have been found at the site. This, however, may have an explanation though. In Siberia, there is a body of water called Lake Cheko. It is within 8 kilometers of the blast zone and directly in the flight path of where the foreign object was flying. It is believed to have been created by the Tunguska event, and new studies on the silt deposit suggest that the lake is only about 100 years old. The lake itself is about 500 meters across, shaped like a bowl, and about 50 meters deep. Near the bottom of the lake, scans have determined that there is a meter-wide stony object resting there. At present, it is still debated as to whether Lake Cheko was formed from the Tunguska event or not. The current theory, which is supported by most of the science, is that at least part of the lake was formed in the last 100 years. This would mean that somewhere at the bottom of this Siberian lake is a chunk of space rock that would help us determine exactly what caused the explosion. Of course though, so long as there's anything that is mysterious and originating from space, some people will chalk it up to aliens. An actual theory as to what caused the Tunguska event was that an alien craft entered Earth's atmosphere, lost control, and then exploded, causing the event. The lack of physical evidence is due to a Russian governmental cover-up, or that other aliens cleaned it up before people came by, which they would have had plenty of time to do given that there was that whole, 2 decades. Obviously, and this goes without saying, this is the real explanation. That is the brief history of the Tunguska event. In all honesty, this is really early, but hey, it was fun to research. Something I omitted from this video was witness accounts of the event, but I highly recommend that you look them up because some of them are fascinating. There's a whole one about 2 brothers who got flattened by their cabin but survived. At present, Tunguska has mostly returned to how it was and is now a nature preserve. I couldn't find any resources saying that it was something that you could visit, which is a shame because I certainly think it would be cool to see. For now though guys, thank you for watching. Do all the YouTube stuff, check my links to the Discord, Twitch, and Twitter, but for now, keep your chin up, peace.